Hey YouTubers, it's me, Wayman29, and I'm back again. Was gonna discuss some old holy war hymns from Jewish texts, from biblical texts, and there's some really great stuff. I get all excited about studying this sort of thing because the history of it just really gets me excited about uh, the way the Israelis viewed the covenant and Yahweh. So I'm going to get into Song of Miriam, not in this video, but later, and maybe some stuff from Habakkuk and the Psalms. And right now, we're going to talk about Judges 4 and 5, which is probably one of the best texts, my favorite personally. So what I'm going to do here is I know a lot of people's theology on these readings are different depending on what denomination you go to. So I know I'll probably get some comments about, oh, that's not right, or how you. However, I'm going to go forget about all that because personally I believe that some sections of the Bible were written after the exile, and the composition from Genesis to Deuteronomy could possibly be later. And from my view, Judges is one of the first books or the earliest books written, and then possibly Joshua. So we're going to check out the early Israeli tribal leagues and the very loosely knit groups as they first started coming together. They had a lot of trouble. They couldn't coordinate themselves to contribute to war, which is why they called upon King Saul to do the job. And probably one of the interesting texts is where Saul cuts the ox in 12 pieces and sends it out as a signal to come in. That was saying you better come in or we're going to come looking for you. So there was a lot of issues arising out of the whether to send soldiers or not, and then the Philistines became more of a threat, so they ended up having to do something. So periodically I'm going to look down because I want to compare some texts from Judges 5. So I'll be doing that. That's why I look away from the camera. At any rate, Judges 5, you can read it for yourself, but I'm just going to go on through. An interesting part is Judges 5:2. Out of the KJV, it's praise ye the Lord for avenging of Israel when the people willingly offered themselves. The New Revised Standard Version and the JPS Jewish Publication Society 1984 has verse 2 saying, when locks are long in Israel, when the people offer themselves willingly, bless the Lord. I find that very interesting because that speaks directly about the holy warriors and how they had the Nazirite section of people who weren't allowed. Well, you can read the rules. Samson followed those rules. They weren't allowed to drink from the vine or cut their hair, and these were holy warriors, which gave themselves, offered themselves. So they weren't the nations; they were holy warriors of Yahweh. So anytime they'd go out to battle, and you see this periodically through the Old Testament, and especially Judges, where they're fighting, and you wonder why. Oh, how come God allowed, or Yahweh allowed them to have spoils of one city and not the other? Well, the spoils from the city they weren't allowed to have was a sacrificial offering to Yahweh. So they understood that was preserved for Yahweh, because Yahweh himself was seen as a warrior god at that point. And then when you cross those lines, you get the hiding of the golden tent and that whole story where severe punishment is dealt out. So that's just an interesting part to verse 2, Judges 5 there. And then going down, there's some other things here. It talks about the ways Yahweh worked as far as the elements, using the stars and hurling hail and things like that down. When he was a warrior god, he did all those things. Later, as you remember, the conflict on the mountain, Mount Carmel, after that he changed, because when they went from being warriors to planters and farmers, they started confusing them with the Canaanite religion and Baalism. A lot of times Baal also, the stories of Baal, if you get a chance to read those, use a lot of the same elements as Yahweh, so the confusion was happening there, and so Yahweh decided to change to a small, quiet voice. When he passes past the mountain, he's not in the fire, he's not in the wind. All those things were attributed to Baal, and even what Yahweh was before that. So you had that change happening too. And also, what's really interesting about this is the prophetess Deborah, who at that time led holy war. So she mandated holy war, she directed holy war, and nobody could go in unless they had the blessings or the pronouncement of holy war by Yahweh and by the prophetess Deborah. And in this text, what's really neat too is how the women came through. You have the story of the king falling asleep in the tent, and one of the women take a tent peg and stab it through his head. That was pretty gross stuff, but it just shows how powerful these things, and anybody reading this text would be influenced in an exciting and positive way if you were part of that. And also, towards the end, in verse 31, you have so all your enemies, O Lord, but may your friends be like the sun, and it rises in its might, and the land rests for 40 years. So the end, here you have the idea of treaty partners, and this agrees with Joshua 24. So you follow the treaty, God will bless you, Yahweh will bless you, and if you don't, you end up getting into some trouble. So hope you enjoyed this, and I'll be talking about the Song of Miriam at some point.